Right. Back to that. Yeah. So task 2 then is about the number of exits, and have you gone through this, Rory, yet?
Yes, but I've done it in a slightly different way, to be honest, because, you know, I'm just trying to imagine it as if, like, if I was the reader, then you've kind of, I know we've got this sort of process we've all got to go through. So let me just get mine up, just have a quick look to see how I've done it.
Mine might be too long-winded, you see, I don't know.
Oh, no, trust me, mine is absolutely massive. I've got a lot of cutting down to do. So, yeah, first of all, just kind of went through, like, you know, the general principle of means of escape, and then just kind of showed that in order to establish this, we had to go through approved document B, and then just said that the key areas used to addressing the expected occupancy numbers are, and then list out each room, because there's obviously a few that we don't have to consider, and then say why. Because I think I watched the webinar today that Dean did, and he did emphasize, you know, say why. You know, there's so much you could, you know, with this sort of kind of answers, you could just be putting table after table, but there's none of them, you know, being you showing them that you know how to use that information. So I've kind of like pretty much talked them through how I managed to arrive to those figures, which sounds a bit different.
Yeah, well, I did that here.
An understanding of how to get there, and for the reader, sort of kind of, you know, well, let's say it wasn't, you know, the markers, then I've kind of said, right, okay, so first of all, let's just work out the rooms that are in question, size of rooms, then refer to documents. This is how we got to these 4 space factors, and then kind of made the comment about like the maximum capacity of 60 people, and then obviously 1 exit. So that kind of like pretty much kind of tied that one off, and then I went on to the distance of exits, distance to exits.
Okay. I think we probably did it back. We probably did it backwards to one another, and I think we probably did it in a similar overall answer.
Saying the same information, yeah, which I think is.
Yeah, I mean, I've got here, as I say, I guess I was listing this out in the way I think about it. You know, how to work out the number of exits. Well, I need to know how many. In order to know how many exits you need to have under building regs, you need to know the minimum, you need to know the maximum number of people that can be accommodated in a particular space. So how do we do that? Well, we apply floor space factors. And this is me determining which floor space factors I was attributing to the spaces that I was then measuring. And then below, I've done a table, like you said, where I've coloured it and said, okay, so the meeting room, floor space factor 1, there's all my areas down there. There's the type of accommodation which comes from here. It would be nice if those 2 pieces of information were on the same page, in fairness. And then the maximum number of people that are allowed in that room, which is a combination of the area and the floor space factor. And then I just put a column in saying how many exits are required and how many have been proposed, because it's a proposed development, isn't it? Not an actual building yet in our scenario.
The only thing that, you know, I've added that's different to yours is just explain why the other like 8 rooms or parts of a room isn't necessary to, you know, add into it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because we talked. Yes, because Dean did mention, didn't he, that, you know,
just falsify your calculations.
Yeah. Well, he used the phrase ancillary spaces. So toilets are ancillary spaces, aren't they? They are there because people are in that building. You don't have a toilet that people are going to occupy just and then go home. You know, not unless they're a little bit odd. So they will just use that while they're there as a convenience. So So yeah, I understand. In fact, I can't add up. My maths is shocking, because 77 and 14 has never been 81, has it?
No.
No. So I don't know where that's come from. But anyway, I've changed that. 89, 91, yeah. Anyway, And I'm trained to be a QS, so there you go. There's that for everyone. So yeah, that's okay. So that was my draft stab at exit numbers, and I've determined, and I don't know whether you guys have also done the same in terms of the floor space factor for the bar approach. It says up here that a bar area within 2 meters of the serving point has a smaller floor space factor than the bar area without fixed seating.
See, I just added the social areas together. I didn't break them up in two on my table. I don't think it makes any odds, to be honest, but
that's fine. That's fine.
It's one big open space without the partition, if the partition isn't obviously, you know, in position.
No, well, that, again, I might be guilty of putting in too much information. And I suppose the reason I've done that is because later in my answer, I've talked about the fact that that folding partition could be closed if there's a fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is nothing to say that when that partition is in its closed position and those social areas A and B, and they are labelled separately, just happen to be being used by two separate kind of parties, that there's a fire. So that's why I've kind of kept that theme running through my answer, that they are going to be measured as separate areas. But of course, we all do this in our own way. You know, that's how I've done mine. And that's how I've got to the total number of people is kind of irrelevant, really. But the total number of people in any given space, I think, is extremely relevant when you're talking about the number of fire exits, which is why I've got here that those spaces need 2. And that, in my view, social area A does need 2, and it's only got 1. And I've just done a little drawing there that shows if that partition is shut, then if there's a fire, this social area A has only got 1 means of escape. And it does say in approved document B2 somewhere that in the event of a fire, when you've got multiple exits from a space, and in my view, this needs multiple exits because it'll have more than 60 people in it, you must discount the exit with the largest width in case it's blocked by fire. Now, I know that some people will just go, well, no, this space, as far as I'm concerned, has got 3 exits, so it complies. And you know what? That's why there'll be some discrepancy between all our answers, which is why when you said, Liam, about the fact that this approved document B2 is going to be more, you know, it's more sort of black and white, if you like. It's not left to your imagination so much as to what you can interpret from legislation and the planning policies and that kind of thing. But in my view, I think this probably is a little bit open to interpretation, because there is a folding partition there. It's there because it's going to be used. And who's to say there's not going to be a fire when it's shut? It's just the law of sod, isn't it? So, but, you know, I might be wrong. It's just my initial draft, which is why I've said stick another door there just to be safe, you know.
Yeah, I think in terms of this, like I said, not really looked at it, but I think what you want in terms of all of this is you can't go wrong with going overboard in terms of the safe you are, and the most practical and health and safety hat you could be on is the best, really, because it's kind of, you know, you want to be goody and make it look above board, and I think that's what they're looking for, to tick the boxes, isn't it? It's all about looking at what the marker's going to be reading in order to tick those boxes and meeting that criteria.
You know what? I honestly don't know. I wish it was, but there's something that Dean said.
I hope it is. I need it.
Well, there's something that Dean said that makes me think that what you've just said probably isn't the case. And it, because I'll be honest, these doors, in my humble opinion, are opening the wrong direction.
You get
a pop. Say again?
You should be opening outwards if you're.
Well, I think so. Now, the approved document does say that where possible, they could be, but it also says they ought not to hinder the rush of people through a corridor. I didn't quite use that language, but haven't ought to hinder.
Yeah, because that's probably, if you open those doors, then it could people who are going through that corridor. It's then blocking. I think it was Dean who was saying the width. Once you have the door handle and the door width and everything, it has to still meet that correct width, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you can set these doors into here. You've got 2 little corridors
true, yeah.
in a dead space.
It has got a vision panel though, so I don't know if that's got anything to do it. But then again, that's that door there leading out of the social area A, it's not a fire door. So I don't know if then you have to. It doesn't really matter then in that case because it's not a fire door. Because I think the proof document B does it not just states that what a fire door has to comply with.
I think we should all look at approved document B to ourselves. I'm almost 100% certain that it talks about doors on exit routes opening in the direction of travel, and that they shouldn't materially affect, if you like, the means of escape into a corridor. And in my view, I think that those doors should open the other way, but they should actually be set back about 1 meter from the corridor so that when you swing them open, they don't impinge on that corridor. But that might be going too far. I don't know. But I'm pretty certain that if you've got 60 people rushing towards a door and then someone's got to pull open the door, he or she are going to get crushed. Not crushed, but there's going to be a delay that didn't need to be there. I mean, the other option is swing them both ways, but I'm not sure whether them being fire doors or not has any effect on which way they swing, but that I'm sure approved document B will clarify that for us, won't it? But I'm pretty sure I read that where possible they should open in the direction of travel. And I suppose most of us are used to these sorts of doors in buildings, aren't we? We've always opened them outwards, haven't we, when we've stepped out into the
We're not allowed to use the shutters as a means of escape as well, though, when it comes to traveling distances, no?
Well, that's a really good question, but does it say, I mean,
like if we're saying that like lobby to the right of where your picture ends effectively, if that shutter there is linked to the alarm and that's what we're linking, like the changing rooms, to the exit, then it should be the same then for the social area because it's the exact same spec on it. It's shutter linked to fire alarm. So in the event of,
I think it's because they're sliding doors. I don't think you're allowed to use sliding doors as a means of escape.
I was going to say, are they slot? I'm sure I saw.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would be shown, wouldn't it, as a door, like this one is.
Yeah, because I asked Dean about this. Emailed him, and he said because they're sliding doors. I have to check my emails. It was something he went on and on in the email. Didn't give me a straight answer. But that's what I took from it, is the fact that you can't use sliding doors.
Yeah, he'd struggle with his word count, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would.
He wrote me 2 sides of A4 when I emailed him directly about it.
I just want one single answer. Like, my question was so simple.
Yeah, you're on the wrong module for that. Christ. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, this is my take on determining the number of exit. Sorry, what are we on? Yeah, the number of exits, aren't we? And I'm saying I think we're one short here, but again, others may well disagree, and that's what this is all about. And then in terms of the maximum distance, I'd already said at the beginning here, that I'm going to be talking about the maximum distance occupants can travel to reach either an external door or an internal fire door. And that's the whole kind of one direction and more than one direction thing, isn't it? And I've just said this from any given point is determined first by identifying the purpose group, which categorizes parts of buildings in respect of the hazards created by their usage, which is just something I read in the approved document. Because I thought, what is a purpose group? What does that mean? So that's what it said it meant. I've just kind of paraphrased it. so I don't get stung for plagiarism. And then again, done my little red boxes around why it's 5, blah, blah. And then again, another table, just to say by analysing that table, it can be determined that travel distances is 18 and 45. 18 in one direction and 45 in more than one. And I don't know whether it's any more complicated than that. We're analysing it, and then by showing a plan, we are then showing whether the building complies, aren't we?
See, like I would think with this one, you're almost rolling in points B and B
building control.
Right, control, yeah. So task B, but it's just point, like the second point, so like the your distances, and then your basic plan drawing showing the escape paths and distances. You're almost rolling that into one effectively.
Yeah, and I think he alluded to something like that in one of his monologues about that. That's fine, so I don't think that's necessarily a problem for us to do that as such, because it's got to flow, hasn't it? And then following on from that table that I just did, I then just created the marked up version of the layout of the building with a table as to what are the proposed distances and what's the requirement. I mean, I might change that to something else, but yeah, maybe that is the correct terminology. I don't know, but yeah, what is, or I might just put in there what does approved document B2 say, and then what is the proposed development saying it will achieve. And I'd already alluded to the fact that there's an exit short, so that's still on there. But then I've just got to put a bit of narrative around this that says, given the parameters that have been set in approved document B2, blah, 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 table this, table that, the drawing, marked up sketch, probably like figure 21 in my thing, shows that it does comply, I don't know if it's any more complicated than that, but I don't want to overcomplicate, but then I don't want to miss a trick either. Is everyone else of the opinion that the social areas need more than one exit?
Well, it's funny. I was literally just checking that, and I've got there could be 193 people in it. So
you've got what? Sorry,
I've got that there could be 193 people in it at any time, but that's obviously me then adding A and B together.
No, that's me as well. Yeah, 91 and 91. Yeah, I'm about on the same page as you. Yeah.
So that's pretty much what 96 to each side. So you're over 60 in both. So yeah, I would be of the impression that you're correct in saying that you do need a second entrance on a second exit. Sorry, on A.
Yeah, that's what I was going for as well. Because like you said, if the partition is definitely up, you'd need another exit.
Yeah.
So I've put that in.
I'm not flying solo then. I was looking for the offside flag for that one. I thought
I think it's just safer to put one in as well.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, yes, I agree with you. I just don't think that carries any weight. I think what you have to do, don't you, is evidence it, I guess, and it's the same throughout this whole thing, isn't it? It's not what you're saying, it's why you're saying it, isn't it? And that's the thing that certainly me, with 30 years of experience in business, is struggling with, is evidencing why I'm doing something. I mean, I've joined a company recently, and half the time I say, why are we doing it like that? Well, I've always done it like that. And it's just like, yeah, but it's so out of date, and it's such the wrong way to do things. And it's the same in this, isn't it? We don't get any marks for doing it because we did it before and it was right. We've got to kind of almost like show your workings out, like back at school. You've got to show how you arrived at that at that sum. And I guess it's obviously it's the correct way to learn, because it makes you think and makes you question yourself in the same way as what our chats do now. Just makes you question everything you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I deliberately here haven't shown exit routes from the toilets, and I need to just write, why is that? You know, because it does say show the maximum travel distances from key areas, and I'm just going to say why I don't view them as key areas, because they are ancillary spaces, aren't they? But I don't know.
See, that's it. That's the bit where I can get thrown as well, because we're saying that as to get to like our occupant number, then we're disregarding the showers and the toilets, but then you're kind of almost bringing it back in again for your distances.
You are, but I don't think that's a problem. I think that's fine. You know, there are, you know, in the same way, in my humble opinion, in the same way as in order to work out whether we are going to work under the guidance of Section 2 or Section 4, which we haven't even talked about, in terms of the area of the building, we measured, or I guess, in my opinion, I think we should have measured the whole footprint of that building from the internal skin. And I got 267 square meters for that. But when you come to measure the internal spaces of each area within the building, you do take into consideration things like internal partitioning and stud walls and block walls and stuff thing. Whereas when you're working out the total square meterage of the footprint of the building, you ignore all of those internal walls. So I don't think it's one set of parameters fits every kind of argument, or not every argument, but every point that you're trying to address in the approved document. Certainly, that's my possibly wrong interpretation of it.
So I wonder, is anyone else including the toilets then for your distances, exits, or exits? Wait.
I wasn't going to, no.
Okay.
But now I feel like I should. Yeah.
Like, I was just thinking, well, you know, if you were, let's say you had, you know, like let's say a bigger social areas, bigger meeting rooms, then yeah, you could then get past that 280 square meters quite easily, you know. But then the rest of the building, you could have an extra, you know, 50 odd square meters to it, but that's not considered, because I don't know that where it makes a comment about that 280 square meters. Is that the entire building, or is that just
the entire building?
Okay. Oh well, I'll shut up now.
No, don't.
Okay.
I think that if you were to clearly, as I have done, not show exit routes from the toilets and not say why you haven't, you'd probably be marked down. But if you don't do it and say why you haven't, you'd probably be okay. And if you did do it and say why you'd done it, I think you'd probably be okay. I think it's all about evidencing why you've done something. I've had a few comments on my assignment, just a why with a couple of sarcastic question marks after it, you know, and you're like, well, oh yeah, you know, it's not obvious to the reader, but it's obvious to me because it's this assignment's running through my veins at the moment. You know, I'm not thinking about anything else when I'm not quite that sad, but you know, it's becomes second nature, doesn't it, when you're in the thick of it? But it's best just to give it to your mum to read, isn't it? But then she'll come back and say, what's the building, you know? So.
Yeah, I'm still a bit confused why we're counting the showers in the changing room, they're not counting the toilets, because we previously voted off the showers. I don't understand that, but yeah, I need to look into that.
No, well, again, this is just my stab, and I wonder whether, you know, my means of escape routes from the changing rooms should probably come from the extreme corner of the changing room bit rather than the shower.
Because in theory, someone could be in that toilets when the place is on fire. So
yeah,
I don't see the harm in, you know, including it, because it is a possibility. It could happen.
Well, they could be anywhere. They could be in the store. They could be in the cleaner's cupboard. You know, they could be anywhere. it's a judgment, isn't it? That's what we're being marked on here. It's what's our judgment that's kind of reasonable, and why do we think it's reasonable, I suppose.
So, okay, so like just curiosity, let's take the disabled toilets, right? Now let's say there was a fire inside the lobby outside the changing rooms. Now we've indicated there that, you know, your means of escape is towards the fire, but is the distance between that disabled toilet and like the main entrance, you know, are we meant to maybe highlight that that still then complies as well?
Well, you know, that's something that I've been wrestling with over the last few days, and I almost wonder whether I ought to do another of these layouts that shows alternative means of escape in the event that one exit is blocked, but that only really applies to the social areas A and B and the meeting room and office, because in the meeting room and office they've got an adjoining door, haven't they?
Yeah.
So you could go from the office into the meeting room and out, and vice versa. But I just wonder whether that's overkill, and whether I need to go back to look, what is the question? Does the building, this is one of the things that Dean said, he said, you know, does the building comply with not only the number of exits, but the distance traveled? And if it does, then why, you know, maybe I'd be going too far with.
I know you could, to be honest, you could spin at that question for, you know, for so long, because it depends on where the fire is, you know. So
The building would have burnt down before I finished thinking about it.
Exactly. I'll be there with a tape measure finding out how we're able to get out of it.
Well, I want to go. If someone said that exit's blocked, I say, well, that's no good. I want to go and see the fire exit route on the plan, and I know the plan's in the corridor, but it's on fire. Well, that's fine. I need to go and see it. You know.
Yeah.
I'm probably taking it to the
It's
end.
an odd one. It's an odd one. I think, you know, but the thing is though, like if you're then like basing off the requirement that's there, then yeah, it all does comply bar the social area. You know, if you are taking it to its closest path, and if you say that it's your closest exit.
And let's be honest. Do we, as building users, have we ever seen a fire escape plan that says, if this is blocked, go this way? We don't, do we? We just go, that's the way out, you know. And I think that's what building, that's what these fire plans are about. They're about telling people what is the quickest way out of this building. And at the end of the day, in the heat of the moment, literally, when there is something amiss here and the building's on fire, people will gravitate towards the nearest exit that isn't on fire. I mean, and I don't think you can legislate for what happens in that instance, other than make sure that one's building is compliant with the regulations. So I don't think you have to cater for every single eventuality. I mean, you know, what would happen if there was a fire at both the exits from that or all three exits from that central space? What do you do?
Well, put it this way, I know that if it was me, if I was in, you know, the majority of these areas, like social area, I'd be going out these sliding doors. Anywhere that you can see outside, you're making a, you know, a go for it.
Yes.
Like I was just looking there, like disabled toilet. So let's say you've got a wheelchair user, right? They're then coming out a door to then go through another set of doors and then, you know, effectively outside. But if they looked right when they're coming out the toilet, you know, they can see the outside. You know, that door might be already open for other people escaping the building. Chances are you're probably just going to turn right in the event of a fire coming out the disabled toilet. I know, you know.
I agree, but which is why I say I don't think you can legislate for what happens in reality. I think that all the approved document can do is to guide architects to design buildings that comply with legislative requirements. And if they comply, then they'll get signed off. And it looks like, on the face of it, in terms of distances, that this one does, in my opinion. Save for the fact that there's not enough exits, but that's a different question. In terms of the travel distance, I think it does comply. But I'm sure all of us will touch on, you know, if an exit's blocked, if we want to, because it's up to us what we think is the right thing to do. I'm not really sure what I'll do, to be honest. Just that Dean, I don't know, Dean just said, don't, he almost alluded to don't make it more complicated than it is, folks, you know.
Yeah, I'm quite happy just to kind of like look past that, because like the word count is horrific. So I don't want to be adding any more to it. I don't have to.
No, I agree. I have a habit of going off piste as well. But, yeah, and that's really as far as I've got, to be honest. I've not got into approved. Oh, dead end corridors. Oh, that was something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I am as well. Actually, I'm looking at all this sort of bits to try and tie up. You know.
Well, I also put something in about widths because I think it's important to say that the proposed development does satisfy the minimum exit widths, because that is a requirement under approved document B volume 2 as well. And quite deliberately, the two doorways that go either side of the kitchenette are sort of 1.5 leaf doors. So they are compliant, and also the fire exit door that goes out into the public open space on the right hand side of social area B, that's also a circa metre wide doorway. So I think he did mention that you should mention door widths, but he kind of mentioned it sort of almost under the radar, because someone I think asked in the webinar. But in terms of dead end corridors, I'm a bit stuck on dead end corridors, because I actually looked at the definition of a dead end corridor in the approved document.
There was, I remember there's a diagram that does show.
Yeah, and it was some, yeah, and to be honest, I'm waiting to speak to a guy who's got his own building regulations consultancy, and I'm trying to get some information off of him. And when I do, I'll share it with you, because I just don't quite know, because the definition of a dead end corridor in the approved document, when you just look at definition, says a corridor where there's only one direction of escape.
See, I'm maybe thinking I'm just gonna like, well, because the word count purely. But if I'm saying that there's no dead end corridors, I'm not wanting to kind of like go too much into it, because I think like that's where that shutter then comes in outside the changing rooms, because I think that's the only place that had the ability to be a dead end corridor from memory, isn't it? If it wasn't going to be, opening in the event of a fire.
Yeah, because if a dead end corridor is defined as a corridor where there's only one direction of escape, then there aren't any, because that main corridor you can get out from both ends, can't you?
Yeah.
And when you're in the other little bit, you get out from the middle. So that sort of semi-open space, almost semi-outdoor space, rather. So maybe that isn't much of an onerous issue, that question, really. But yeah, I think a sentence is enough, isn't it? On that. But that's as far as I've got. I've not got on to inspections and that. Have you?
No, I've not looked at that bit yet. I'm planning maybe that this week.
I haven't done that either. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll
regroup when it comes to that, will we?
we've got a bit of time, haven't we? We've got like 3 weeks, and I feel when we have these little sessions that we kind of probably, well, certainly I feel I kind of can refine what I've done, and I really don't think I'm going to be getting a high mark on this, but I think I'm going to be passing it quite easily, and I think that's really with the way that the module's been set up and the difficulty in finding concise information. I just want it out of the way, to be honest.
It's only 40 that we need to get, though. Plus, the thing with this, I always think, though, right, is like, see if the markers do, be a bit harsh. Like, at the end of the day, it's all up to us to, look for the resources and things like that. And there's probably many answers to a lot of these questions. So I think, you'd probably be able to kind of argue back at them quite well. If you've made a well-structured argument on the points that you found, it's probably going to be difficult for them to kind of work against that. If they then, start looking into it, finding where you got that information for, understanding, actually, yeah, that all kind of stacks up. Unless they've got like some form of model answer in their head, that they're just going to try and rule everyone out of.
I agree. And it comes back to probably what I said earlier and what I'll probably say a lot. It's why, not the how. And it's the why. Is that your answer? What can you back it up with? You know, and evident. I was married to a teacher for years, and she started talking to me about when they have to put proposals together for a new job. They have to evidence everything that they've done in their careers. It's all evidence-based. And so is a degree, isn't it? It's evidencing why you think that if there's more than 60 people, why the doorway's got to be bigger than 750 mil wide, you know? And it's, if you can say, and again, and that's a very that's an indisputable fact. But when you're talking about, you know, why is there going to be another exit in that social area? Well, it's because if that petition were closed and there's a fire, you know, and if you can evidence it, and like, you know, and someone is just as more likely to be in the toilet as they are in the shower when there's a fire. That's why I've measured it from both spaces, you know. Or you could even say, you can see from the plan that the distance from the toilets in the shower area is the same as the shower area because it's no further, you know. So I think as long as you're kind of saying why you're doing it, I agree with you. I think there are many variants of the answer here. I think they just want you to demonstrate your understanding, don't they, of where you've got the answer from.
Show and tell, isn't it? So that's really what the way I've got to look at this.
Yes. Yeah, oh, my kids sometimes come home and tell me that. I've got to do that at school. Almost takes me back. Yeah, so not sure if anyone else has got anything to throw in the ring.
No, I think I'm just going to review mine and then take a stab at the corridors and the remaining tasks.
Yeah.
So I think just looking, you know, onto like the building control inspection section, we all want to maybe like regroup and then kind of work out where we're finding resource for their schedule effectively to try and work out.
Yeah, well, I remember there was a week of learning that talked about approved inspectors and building control inspectors, but also I'm pretty certain it's something like week 14 or 15, I'm not sure, or 11. No, it might even be 11. That there was a sort of a revisit of that, and then in much more detail. So, and that I just gleaned that from. I can't remember where I found that from. It was either just scrolling through, you know, the weekly material, or it was on the assignment brief, or it was somewhere, I don't know where. But I certainly think that we've been taught about the differences. I certainly remember putting something in my journal about it. But yeah, I agree. I think perhaps in a week's time, perhaps same time next week, you know, maybe we should have another session, and then that still gives us a couple of weeks to worry about it till we have to put it in.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Would task 3 as well while we're at it, or just maybe turn
the poster. Yeah, I've not even looked at that.
See, like I was thinking, like, you know, like you get the construction phase plan, obviously, but you don't have posters for every single stage of the job. No. So, you know, I'm thinking, is it just for more like of a passerby going?
Yeah,
you know,
it's visitors.
Yeah. So
again, if you read the brief, it's about visitors, isn't it?
Yeah. So just like your PPE signs, and then like any sort of, you know, danger such as like, you know, lorries and all that turning or whatever you want to have.
Yeah. Hard hat. It's a hard hat site. It's still toe cap site. You know, no, I don't think it's a real difficult one, but and we're going to run out of time in a minute, so it's just going to die. So yeah, maybe we should do this again in a week's time, then, and I'll post these on the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
There.
Cheers. Bye.